So, hi, I'm Debbie,
Hello.
and this is Chris,
Hi, everybody.
and we are talking about grief what makes a grief informed practice. And Chris, I had seen on your Facebook page the other day a post that I thought is a really important thing to talk about. So,
Mhm.
you want to talk about what I'm talking about?
Yes, 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 yes. So the other day, I posted about leaving my job with the state here in Tennessee. I used to work for the Department of Children's Services. And what I noticed in my short time there, my year and a half, um, one, I was at the top of my career, just to let you know. Um, but what I noticed is, as a system, as a child welfare system, that the system is way big and it is not trauma informed or grief informed as a whole. And I came from a system, a city system. I worked for the police department, and one of my roles was to teach civilians as well as police officers about trauma informed care, what it looks like to go inside these schools
Yeah.
and to talk to kids who have these brains that are activated
Mhm.
not only by trauma but traumatic grief situations. So I trained for so long, and I had the backing of leadership,
Mhm.
and even if I had resistance, it was part of the program. It was part of their training
Mhm.
to know this information. They had to sign off on it, right? So moving over to the state and having and being a consultant for 14 regions of this state of Tennessee, I realized there's a common denominator here.
Mhm.
Even though we have foster youth, there's about 8,000 youth in foster care
Mhm.
in the state of Tennessee. And then we have at risk youth, juvenile justice. What I'm hearing is um, just not when you're talking about placing a child somewhere and
Mhm.
they're disrupting behaviors,
Right.
uh,
Right.
grief and trauma are kind of glossed over
Mhm.
as if it's not a big deal
Right.
that children are in foster care and exposed to so much. And the reason why they may be in foster care is because their parent may be dead, may have died, incarcerated, all of that.
Mhm.
So the big thing was ACEs, right? You take the ACEs
Right.
training, but there's a lot more layers to it.
Absolutely. Yes. And
And
all
yeah,
of so many multiple losses that kids are experiencing in the foster care system
it's so
definitely
layered.
not being recognized or addressed. Especially the
Yes.
medical system, for foster parents themselves
Mhm.
too, and for the parent who isn't able to parent their kid.
All the
Yeah.
things. Yeah. You have to think of systems and you have to think of levels.
Mhm.
And like they say in grad school, peeling back the onion of the layers of the onion. That's what
Yeah.
we really are doing. And we cannot gloss
Yeah.
over that. And a big personal story is that my mother was a part of foster care growing
Oh.
up in the state of Tennessee.
Mhm.
So the fortunate thing was that she was with a family from 5 to the time she aged out, 18, 19,
So she
with
had
her
stability.
with her younger brother. But that grief lasts a long time.
Yeah.
So I was born into already in grief.
Mhm.
So when I recognized that these systems were not grief or trauma informed, I was put in a situation where foster care kids were placed in a jail like environment,
Mm.
and not tended to.
Mhm.
And when you're working with people, it's not everybody that's not trauma informed, but
Mhm.
people are stretched thin, right? Stretched thin and working and not sleeping very well, not taking care of themselves. And when you have foster care kids and they're not placed, they have their grief that's showing out, and then you are just walking into a situation like boom. So some situation happened where I did not feel a group of kids were being taken care of the way they need to be taken care of. I
Mhm.
made it known, and it was almost as if I was speaking Chinese. That was the most frustrating thing, that I was speaking
Absolutely.
a different language, and to a system that was not prepared, was
Yeah.
not ready, nor were they willing to be
Willing.
ready.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's when I decided, you know, this is important to me. And at this point, I cannot put my name or my license on
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
work, and I'm out. So
Yeah.
I started my own practice.
Good. You know, but
Mhm.
it came from also this disillusionment, which I think that we go through at some point working
Mhm.
in the mental health system,
Yeah.
is that at some point, I tell my students over at Pepperdine this, is that, you will all of a sudden become very disillusioned with the business part of mental
Mhm.
health,
Mhm.
and that here's a system that is supposed to be set up to be pro mental health, and yet
Yeah.
so many different ways that our grief is not being acknowledged and recognized and honored, and
Mhm.
and that other therapists, that the system don't have the tools, nor do they want to have the
Mhm.
tools of being able to address the grief.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, and you have to, there's an old song, you have to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold
Yep.
'em. So, if you're in this field and you feel like, "Yes, let me be that person to educate and to teach a whole system here
Yeah.
as one person," yeah, you can do that.
Right.
For myself, that system was huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Now as
Yeah.
an outside contractor, I can definitely help.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I remember working at the hospital years and years and years ago, and I was starting to do more grief work in my private practice and in doing trainings. And I would come back from what felt like this amazing nirvana connection in doing grief retreats, and I would come back to the
Mm.
hospital and I'd be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wow, I just got slapped with, here's the quote real world that we're not supposed to,
Mhm.
acknowledge what is so incredibly painful.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
I know
Yeah,
that that
yeah.
was a big contribution to me leaving the hospital and saying, no, I need to find a better way. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like you said earlier, it's top down, right? It's from people in executive level positions to the people who are janitorial, working the floors. It's
Right.
everybody that's involved in the grief-informed language,
Yeah.
professionally and for the kiddos and whoever else is a client, or some people
Yeah.
say consumers. Yeah, so it is something that when we do this work, there's not a lot of us.
Right.
It's not a
Right.
lot of us having this conversation
Yeah.
about how grief affects everything.
Everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
So
mhm.
I wanted to, you and I had talked about before, we want to introduce the Dougie Center. We
Mhm.
love the Dougie Center. It's in
Yes.
Portland, Oregon, and they are a center for children's grief, offer amazing trainings, and they had written a piece on their website that's titled "To Become Grief Informed Begins with the Initial Step of Identifying and Embracing 10 Core Principles About Grief." And in fact, actually, I've contacted them before and asked, can I share this, please, publicly? And they're like, absolutely, please. So I'm gonna see if I can share it on the screen. Yeah, there we go.
Mm-mm.
And so, there's how about you and I alternate in reading them?
Mm-hmm.
You go first.
Okay, so these are core principles involving recognizing what grief is and best practices for supporting people who are grieving. So, number one, natural loss is normal, inevitable, and universal human experience. People have an innate capacity to adapt to loss and function healthily.
And not true.
Mhm.
Second one is complex and non-pathological. I really love this one. Grief
Mhm.
is an adaptive non-pathological response to loss. Grief is complex and complicated because people in relationships are complex and
Mm.
complicated. I remember when I read that, I was like, yes, is that, we, um, we are human beings that have contradictory feelings and contradictory thoughts and relationships that are not positive or negative. Is that often they are really complex, and our grief and our reaction to our grief becomes so complex.
Mhm. And the next one is contextual. Grief is not solely an individual experience.
Yeah.
Grief is interwoven in a social cultural context influenced by family, community, and other social systems. Acknowledging and addressing the cultural, and historical factors that impact grief can reduce disparities and promote equity and inclusion. Oh my gosh. Really big. It's not just that
Talk
one
about that
person,
one. Yeah.
right? It's not just that one person. It is as my good friend Erla calls it, the ripple effects, right?
Mhm.
Of grief. And if you touch that water, you'll see all of the ripples of this water that's all interconnected.
Mhm.
And when you are not asking questions, being curious about the culture and the systems around someone who is grieving, you miss out on a lot. You miss out on a lot. So, yeah. So historical factors, and I know Debbie, you do the timelines.
Mhm.
That's one
Mhm.
of the factors that can impact grief as well. So, yeah, this is important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm,
I love doing timelines to look
mhm,
at, what, not just this experience, but all the experiences beforehand too.
mhm,
And yeah. So fourth one is it's disruptive.
mhm,
It's disruptive. Okay. Is that grief challenges our identity, our relationships, our beliefs, and assumptions about the world, and our role in it. That makes me think of the work of um, Shattered Assumptions. And that was an incredible book. I think it was written back in the 90s. But really, talking about all of a sudden, I like to think of such a universal reaction and perception of the world is that everything feels completely different and the same all at the same time, and how incredibly surreal and bizarre
mhm,
that life that life becomes after a significant loss, after the world has been turned upside down and inside out.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah. I like to use the word surreal instead of denial. I think it.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then relational connection and perceived support. Having people who care and support us after a loss help us navigate the changes in our lives. Feeling heard and having people to share with helps us know we're not alone in our grief. I talk about that in some of my podcasts. Is my support systems really saved my life
Mhm,
when it came to grieving young. And also, what I teach my clients is the power of five. Naming people outside of your family, outside of your home that you can just talk to
mhm.
whenever things are going left. And if one person's not there, then you have four other people
Mm, Mhm.
identify in navigating your loss and navigating your the change, the transitions that you go through in every level of your grief. So not just even now, every time you move,
Mhm.
like for myself, I was in high school, but then when I moved to college, finding my other five people
Mhm.
or additional people to fill in for the gaps for those people that I needed. So yes, that's a really good one because it feels isolating anyway to be grieving, um,
Absolutely.
but to not have anyone feels even more pertinent. It just feels deep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Mm,
this is so important because sometimes, a lot of times, grief is becomes a quote social problem.
mhm,
That,
mhm.
especially if it's a stigmatized loss, is that we know so many people feel so isolated and
Mhm,
dismissed and minimized.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So next one is 6 is personal empowerment and agency. Experiencing loss and grief can help us feel helpless or out of control. Phew, isn't that true? Choosing
Mhm,
our own healthy responses rather than what others tell us to do or not do can help us regain a sense of balance and person agency. I think this is incredibly important because grievers are getting advice um, from people all the time of, well, you should really just keep more busy, or people are changing subjects on them because they just don't want them to be sad.
yeah.
And so, being able to um, choose our own experiences, I think that's what also leads our own ways of grieving. I think that's what leads people to come in for counseling with the statement of, I must be crazy because everybody else seems to be doing okay. It's like, no, and they're probably
Mhm.
not. But we learn so insidiously that we, that we're making a big deal out of it when it is a big deal.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. That one hit so big. Okay. All right. The next one is safety. And now, if you're a brain spotter out there, brain spotting, they teach you about the word safety is subjective. And you can use other words like restorative, soft space, guided space, those type things. But experiencing loss challenges our sense of safety in the world. Paying attention to our physical, emotional, and spiritual needs will help us cope with all the changes that happen after a loss.
Yeah.
So, there's a song that somebody says, everybody just go mute. And in grief, it just feels like everybody just around you. You can hear them, but you cannot focus. You cannot
Yeah.
focus. There might be some hypervigilance around even going to sleep because what does tomorrow hold or what
Mhm.
does the next year hold? Some people
Yeah.
are fearful of a new year happening.
Mhm.
Everybody else like, oh, it's a new year. I'm so happy. And then if you are a griever, your new year can bring you some anxiousness and depression because the last few years brought so many different challenges, bereavement, sudden loss, all of that. So it doesn't feel safe to even enjoy pleasure.
Mhm.
It doesn't enjoy a new year.
Yeah.
So yes, paying attention to all the physical symptoms because grief is not just a term. It
Mhm.
encompasses the full body, and that's what grief informed practice is. It's about the full body experience, even down to the spiritual, which I have seen and I've dealt with my
Mhm.
own self is a spiritual battle between why is this happening to me? Why does things always like this happen to
Yeah.
me? I don't like God. Why would God do this to me? So, paying attention to those changes can help us cope with all the changes. And just paying attention. And with my clients, I do a rating scale from
Mhm.
1 to 10. One is the absolute worst, 10 is the absolute best. And
Mhm.
we rate ourselves from mentally all the way down to spiritually, if they would like to do spiritually. So
Mhm.
that keeps us in tune with our body and all the aspects of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is particularly important when the loss has been sudden or
Mhm.
violent,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that all of a sudden the world does not feel safe, and that there's this hypervigilance, for
Mhm.
within families. I will talk a lot about,
Yeah.
um,
It
you know,
colors differently.
especially if it's sudden or totally unexpected, is that I'll say, so just so you know, when you're 5 minutes late getting home, this is the
Mhm.
reason why mom goes ballistic on you, is
Mhm.
because there is no sense of protection or safety anymore, because
Mhm.
the worst thing
Mhm.
that they couldn't have even imagined already happened.
Mhm, mhm. Most
Yeah.
definitely. And I again, I used to work for the police department. So you never wanted to see a police department person. You don't want to see an officer or anything if, that officer came to your house to tell you some news. Somebody has died,
Right.
or to identify you never want to see an officer again, right? Or an EMS or a fire department. You don't want to see them ever again or hear a siren. So yeah, it is
Triggers. Yeah.
definitely, yeah, definitely a trigger.
Yeah. So the next one is person centered. The intensity and experience of grief are unique for every single individual. And I see this within families, is that everybody is a griever, and how difficult it is for them to actually also be able to support each other at times,
Mhm.
because they don't want everybody else to be hurting, and they don't want to be hurting. And so it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, we don't go there. It's like, well, of that, the comparison of not just pushing each other away inadvertently, but also I think the comparison of, well, this person's not crying as much as this other
Mhm.
person. Um, and I remember a husband, wife, and mom and dad whose son had died, and they came in together, and she bravely said, it's like we're having this contest of who loved our son more,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
cry
Mhm.
more. So that's what it feels like. And we were able to talk through that wasn't the case at all. But, how we interpret how each person is supposed to be
Mhm.
experiencing their grief.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some other unique situations like, you talk about parents and then say a bio parent lost their child, but the person they're married to is a step parent, and that step parent is grieving differently, and then
Yeah.
the bio parent is grieving differently, and then you have another bio parent that's
Yeah.
grieving another way. So it's like
Good point.
how
Yeah.
yeah, so when they are coming together, say there's like a trial or something like that, court hearing or something, when they come together with all of this stress right here,
Yeah.
the intensity can be something for the therapist as well. So just
Mhm.
knowing that everybody's experience is going to look so much different.
Yeah.
So the dynamic nature of grief cannot be fully captured by stages, phases, or other prescriptive models. There are no universally accepted or correct ways to grieve. This is huge.
Amen.
For our vernacular, we all know when you hear stage, you know what we're thinking of.
Mhm.
Kubler-Ross and then David Kessler,
Mhm.
uh, in all the 5 and then the 6 and sometimes the 7th stage of grief. And it's not linear and it's not prescriptive. And this is a thing around what we do, Debbie, and what you all, whoever is listening, we're teaching individuals, we're teaching families that it doesn't always go this way.
Yeah.
That the way you're grieving is your way of response, your body's way of response.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're like, well, I thought I was done with that one stage, that one level, and then I went back. And then there's a sense of shame around it.
Mhm.
We don't do the shame and grief, right? We are not doing the shame. We are realizing that we can go back and forth between lost reality in the present day. We can make new memories and also grieve the old memories.
Mhm.
So that's I love that this is in here, that this is dynamic,
Me too.
and we are not pathologizing it. We are
No.
not throwing a prescription or a scripted model to this, but going
Mhm.
back and forth between different models that works for each client.
Okay. And then the 10th one, last one, is that it's non-finite. Loss is interwoven into our identity. Therefore, grieving is not a finite experience. Grief doesn't have some magical endpoint. We can
Mm.
grieve someone throughout our lives. I think this is so important
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
because we hear that with people who come in who say, okay, so about how long is this going to take? You know,
Yeah.
and like, this is, you are not the same person that you were before this loss happened. And that our grief will shift as we age, as we go through different developmental stages, as we go through different experiences, and have a completely different perspective than we did years beforehand. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think that that's always, this kind of quandary. Somebody said the other day, they were like, hey, okay, so we're through the first year. Now what?
Mm.
As
Mm.
that's supposed to be
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
magical endpoint. Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that second year is harder.
Yeah. So yeah. So I love these principles,
Mm.
and I see that you can download it in English, Spanish, and in Japanese.
Yeah.
I think this is just a great resource. I think Dougie Center has an enormous amount of different resources that I
Mhm.
um, really advocate for people to go check them out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you have coming up, Crystal?
Oh
Chris?
my goodness. Let's see. Here in Nashville, I do have my groups coming up. Parent and grandparent losses coming up next
Oh,
Saturday.
mhm.
Yeah,
Good.
so that's been really good because I just moved to a new location in the Nashville area, so it's a little bit closer to my house.
Oh,
So I'm not
nice.
traveling as much or using so much gas, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, so that's coming up, and lots of different trainings happening coming up in May. But right now we're getting really settled in and getting ready for our groups.
Mhm.
Um, in starting, hey, clinical, starting to write a clinical lab too. So yes,
Excellent.
lots of work, good stuff. We'll let you know.
Excellent. Good, good,
Mhm.
good, good. I've got an estrangement course that I'm going to be doing again, offering again on the 18th of April. And actually, I've added even more information in that course, specifically for people who are not only initiate estrangement, but also are impacted by
Mm,
estrangement, of
mm,
being on the receiving end of that as well. So
mhm,
yeah, so I'm
mhm.
looking forward to that.
How's your
Yeah.
book going?
Oh my gosh, I am actually set up a time to meet with Bob Niemeyer the end of this month to talk about doing a couple pilot studies to include in my book on let me see, it's called Healing Letters, a
Mhm.
trauma informed approach to dealing with unfinished business and grief. It's kind of a handful on that title, but I'm excited about it. So I'm still doing a whole bunch of work, research and reading, and
Yeah.
fleshing out different case
Mhm.
studies as well. Yeah. So,
Mm. I love
whew,
it.
thank
Congratulations.
you, thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So we'll meet perhaps in a couple of weeks
Mm,
again,
mhm,
and
mhm.
uh, and share some more information. I love doing this with you.
Same. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.